Welcome to GDS046 Lab. This is lab number 1, getting started with PowerPoint. What you're going to need for this lab is to have your computer on, and of course you're watching, but you also need access to Microsoft PowerPoint, either PowerPoint Professional on your personal computer, or PowerPoint on the Mac, or a Office 365. And what we'll do is we'll have a brief conversation about PowerPoint, getting started with PowerPoint, and then we'll transition into the lab and we'll just review some of the user interface in PowerPoint, and you'll make a very simple presentation and save it and then submit it to the Canvas Dropbox. So let's get started with PowerPoint. So what is PowerPoint? Well, PowerPoint is one tool in this suite, the Microsoft Office Professional or Office 365 suite. PowerPoint allows you to create very dynamic and impactful presentations. Included in the Office suite are Word, Excel, and SharePoint in some cases, as well as Outlook. And PowerPoint is really nice because since it's an Office tool, there are features from Word and Excel that can be integrated into PowerPoint presentations. But PowerPoint fundamentally is about people and communication. The people typically are the sender and the receiver of a message. As you can see here in this photo, this young lady is using PowerPoint to do a business presentation, and she's the sender, and the message is, of course, her oral communication, her body language, and PowerPoint. So PowerPoint is just part of the message and the communication, and it can become pretty complex, but the real art of using PowerPoint is having the right balance between having your PowerPoint and the experience of the presenter integrated together to deliver an appropriate and effective message. Your message can include things like text, graphics, charts, shapes, smart art, which is really cool, and even 3D graphics and more. We're going to take a look at all of these as we progress through the semester. But for now, you have a general idea of PowerPoint. Let's take a look at using PowerPoint on our computer. So here you can see I have a blank presentation, PowerPoint presentation, that is open, and this is kind of the default of what you see when you launch PowerPoint. To do that, on the PC, you want to click on your Start button, and then if PowerPoint is installed, you will see that in the Productivity group, the Microsoft PowerPoint icon. Simply click the icon to launch PowerPoint. If you're on the Mac, you can launch PowerPoint from the dock or from your Applications folder. Once you're in PowerPoint, PowerPoint in general uses a slide metaphor, and it sort of inherited that whole metaphor from the old days of transparencies and slides. Some of you may be old enough to remember, or you might even remember recently from your experience in K-12, that some people use transparencies. They were simply plastic slides that we would use in an overhead projector. And PowerPoint took that same metaphor and built it into software. And so you should have PowerPoint open, and this is a simple blank presentation. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the user interface at a high level, and then you'll add some text to your presentation. Very simple, plain Jane presentation. You're going to save it and submit it to the Dropbox. When PowerPoint launches, this is generally what you will see. At the top of the screen is a simple title bar, and what it includes is different options. Now, what you might see in the reading versus what you see in my title bar is completely different, and that's because I configured PowerPoint's title bar to meet my specific needs. But in general, the title bar includes shortcuts and buttons that you'll need for frequently used features. Like, for example, this is the new slide button. You can turn auto save on and off if you want to do that, or save just locally. You can go and look at the presentation from the slideshow view. And along the title bar, you can see that when you get to this double arrow or this caret, it will provide you with more features that aren't visible. And here is the presentation name. My user profile right now, I'm not signed into Office 365, so it's not happy about that. And another feature to hide and display the ribbon. So this area is called the title bar, and this is called the ribbon. Over here in pane 1, we see our slide thumbnails, and we'll learn later how to change this from the slide view to the outline view, where we can see just text versus a preview of our slide. And then in this area is where we see our actual slide and the, if you will, the canvas of the slide. This black area here is sometimes referred to as pasteboard in other applications. Anything outside of the frame of the slide will not appear in the presentation, but you can use this area to store things, particularly with animations if you want something to fly in from the left, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And then down here at the bottom is a status bar, which shows us our slide number, the current slides. We could turn on and off notes, which are particularly useful when you're doing a presentation. The ability to change views, like right now we're in the normal view. If we click this, what I sometimes call the waffle button, it will put us in what's called the slide sorter view. But since we only have one slide, we only see one slide. Here is the reading view, and then the slideshow view. This slider allows us to zoom in and out on the presentation, and this will allow us to expand the window, the entire PowerPoint window, to fit the size of your monitor. And that's a good idea in design, but not necessarily because when you're building a PowerPoint presentation, you might have all kinds of resources open. You're going to have maybe Word, Excel, and graphics that you've created that you might want to insert. Most of the interaction that you will have in PowerPoint is via the ribbon. Now, the ribbon can be your best friend or your worst enemy. The issue with the ribbon is contextual, meaning that the ribbon is sometimes difficult to conceptualize and learn because the ribbon is contextual, and it will change its layout depending on what you're doing. Right now, your view may be a little bit different depending on the theme that you're using or the default theme you have for PowerPoint. But where you have a tab with an underline like this, this is the current tab. So for example, if I clicked on File, you can see things change radically, right? So clicking on File gives me the option to do things like open a new presentation, get information, save it, save as a PowerPoint. We'll come back to all these features. The active tab right now is the Home button, and within, not the Home button, but the Home tab. And within the Home tab are groups. For example, this is the Clipboard group. This is the Slide group. This is the Font group. And this is the Paragraph group, Drawing, Editing, etc. We'll talk more about these groups. The ribbon is contextual because The groups will change depending on what we're doing. For example, take your mouse and click between the D and the O and the text double tap. And what you'll see is that the ribbon automatically changed. Things that were grayed out because they weren't available suddenly light up, like font, the font group. So what PowerPoint assumes is that we're going to actually add some text, and we want to format that text and or align that text or do something with that text. And so those groups light up. And so each of these tabs represents features that give you options to create your presentation, such as insert. You can insert new slides, things like tables, pictures that you may have downloaded, online pictures, screenshots, shapes, icons. This is how I got the 3D models and smart art. And we'll definitely take a look at all this. You can draw. You can go to the design mode, which we'll talk about PowerPoint's themes and how they are configured. Things like transitions, which are animations between slides, and then animations, which are actual animations on the slide, etc. For now, go back to the Home tab. So left click on the Home tab. And what I want you to do is click here in this text box, and I want you to enter your first name. So for example, this is my first name and your last name. And actually what I want you to do, it'd probably be better, is to type my first PowerPoint. And it may not be your first PowerPoint. And then put your first name and your last name. And then after you've done that, I want you to select File or select Save, and then the Save dialog will open. And this is where it gets tricky. I want you to save and select Browse and save on your computer. So maybe save it on the desktop, name it with your first name and underscore your last name, underscore lab 1. As you can see, I have a lot of PowerPoint presentations, right? Name it lab 1. And so now it's saved, and you'll see here that if we expand this window, we'd see the full name of the file. So we've got this first slide, right? Well, if we go to slides and click here, we have an option to insert a new slide. Let's insert a new slide. And then we're given an option based on the theme on the type of slide that we want to enter. How about we enter and select, pull down and select title and content. So we're just going to have 2 slides. And what we're going to put in here is my goals for the course. And you've already put this in the discussion forum, but let's say that my goal is to use PowerPoint to create presentations for work, engage my audience, and most importantly, to have fun, because PowerPoint can be really fun. And go ahead and save. And now just follow along with me. Let's do something really cool. This is a pretty plain PowerPoint, right? For now, let's go to the Design tab and let's select a theme. You can click down, and as you scroll and hover, you see all kinds of themes, right? You can also click this drop down arrow and scroll and select this theme. Don't browse for any themes right now. It gets pretty complex. Just select from the themes that are currently available. Like this one is pretty cool, although it seemed to have gotten rid of my apostrophe. So with some themes, things change, or maybe that's my fault. So I'll just go with this, and I'll put Curtis Pembroke's my first presentation by Curtis Pembroke. And so now we see we have 2 slides, and based on this theme, you can already tell that what happened is it changed the fonts. So themes are include things like colors and fonts. So go ahead and save your work, and congratulations, you've created your first PowerPoint presentation. So go back to the home screen on the Home tab, click Save again, and then close this PowerPoint and then submit it to the Canvas Dropbox, and you will have completed the first lab for this week, and you can kick back and chill out. Thanks a lot. If you have any questions, post them to the questions forum.